here for going on 5 hours, probably a couple more hours, to hear basically a filibuster, and I've heard disadvantaged children, I've heard the rich, the poor, I've heard, the reducing treatment for opioids for our youth. I've heard Ms. Moore when she was here talking about an ad of a white child. And I just wonder, on that particular comment, why not an American child? Why not? We're all Americans. I've yet to hear anybody on the opposite aisle talk about this debt problem as a real problem. It's like you sit here, you're picking apart a pie, and you can take any part of it that's a bitter ingredient. But folks, we're losing the whole pie. We're not losing just one ingredient. Now, I guess y'all are scoring, you want to score political points for TV. I get all that. We have got a serious problem in this country. And you can either ignore it or deal with it. Now, I keep hearing about regular order. I was one of the 20 that insisted on regular order. You know what's different about this? One, this bill accomplishes pretty much what we asked the Speaker to go with cuts, with getting our financial house in order. It's a start. Now, Jody, you know I would double these cuts. I would not. I've never voted for a clean debt ceiling or any debt increase, Mr. Geese. I will not without cuts because the cancer in this country is spending. And I keep hearing, everybody is a victim in y'all's opinion. Well, the American people are a victim. Jody, you hit it just right. Where's our children? Where's our children's seat at the table? They're not going to have a table to sit at that's not controlled by China or some foreign country if it keeps on. Now, the regular order, we hit the debt ceiling in January. We've got to deal with it in June because Janet Yellen will call 911 and say we got to have it. This president has called, he's on record, is calling for a clean debt ceiling, which I think if my memory's right, a clean debt ceiling is no cuts. There is no business, there's no family that can operate the way this federal government operates. And I'm sorry, when you look at, Jody, you named some spending that's been basically dropped out of a helicopter is what I would compare it to. But what about the student loans that are given? How is that not a giveaway to the wealthy? Paying college tuition, and you're spitting in the face of those who work hard and pay for their college education, or those who don't even go to college. I've heard about you're jumping all over the work requirements. Well, the work requirements under this administration have not been enforced anyway. And 20 hours? Give me a break. The American people are not on your side. You can wordsmith it all you want, but it's not. You talk about taking away some of these tax credits. I'm on the solar panel caucus. I'm more in favor of doing away with these tax credits. You know why? How many on a solar panel, how many of the parts come from the United States? Maybe 15%, maybe 20%. 80% comes to China, who, folks, is our problem. What about, you talk about the poor and how this is going to put people in recession, put this country in recession. We've already headed toward that. We're in a recession. And what about those poor families making, I think, Ms. McGovern, you mentioned the SNAP program, the average $6 an hour. Why are they paying the double price of gas? Why are they having issues with getting any kind of supplies on a timely basis? Why are they having everything in a grocery store, if it's there, paying triple because of this administration?
Will the gentleman yield?
Not yet. I'll yield it in proper time. Y'all have filibustered, and I don't mind 5 hours, but really, and I'll sit here all night. But it's really it's disingenuous to do what you're doing by picking things out. And I don't, with the crisis this country facing, And Jody, I appreciate you and Jason's work on it. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. What about the tax credits for electric cars? Who can, tell me a poor person they can buy an electric car? Name me one. People don't want them. Now, you can use the climate argument all you want, but with China building a coal factory every week, what about that? And so, and you know, Miss Rose DeLorean, have you been to the border?
Yes, I have several times, Mr. Norman.
Have you seen what's happening to our 5 million children and adults that are coming across unfettered that this administration has done?
Well, let me just tell you this.
No, answer. It's a yes or no. Have you seen what?
It's not a yes or no answer. I will tell you that I am for border security. What this bill will do is to
What bill
really
have you put up
decimate.
for securing the border?
I say.
Okay, so you're not for border security. I'm yet to hear you talk
Don't tell me
about
what I'm for or not for. I am for border security. I've dealt with it in the Appropriations Committee year in and year out since I have been there. I've been on the Appropriations
Okay, I'm not going to let you
Committee for the
filibuster. You've
last
been
32
filibustering.
years.
It's yes or no. You're
No,
for open borders.
it's not-
We're
I-
looking at 15.
don't tell me what I
We're
am
looking
for,
at no.
Mr.
Your
Chairman.
administration is. You're looking at 15 million coming across this border.
Well,
I've
let me
seen
just
the
tell you
rake
this.
trees.
What do you
I've
want to
seen.
do with getting
As
border-
I'm reclaiming
border
my
control?
time, Miss Rose DeLorean.
Border
It's not
control.
your. It's not your time.
This bill
It's
cuts
not your
border
time.
control. But you addressed me.
It's not your time.
You
Well,
addressed
you're
me.
filibustering. I'm not going to allow you to do that.
You
My
addressed
issue
me.
is, okay, I'm not letting her filibuster, Mr. Chairman. You want to try to answer a yes or no on that?
I said to you that I have spent a lot of time on the Appropriations Committee where I have been.
Okay, I get that.
No, if I could, because I have, in fact, helped to appropriate funding for security at the border, including the technology, the support of.
Okay, I'm reclaiming my time.
Oh,
I'm
well,
not going to
you
put
don't
up with
wanna hear
that.
the
I'm not going.
answer.
Let me ask you another question, Ms. Rose DeLorean. You know what the debt, you know what the interest, if you compute 3% on $1 trillion, you know what that comes to?
You tell me.
$30 billion on $1 trillion. You know what it comes to when you multiply it times 32? Close to $1 trillion, just the interest, no principal. What your administration is offering is nothing. Continue on, and this country is bankrupt. I wasn't sent to Congress, and I don't think you were either, to be honest with you, to bankrupt this country, and that's what's going on.
Well, I
$1
don't know
trillion
how
in,
long
hold
you've
on.
been here, but I've been here a long time, and I've worked very
You have been here a long
diligently
time, and how's
to
that been
see-
working for the debt ceiling?
Well, listen, as I said to you, we get I don't know how you feel about a tax cut that went for $2 trillion to the richest 1/10
Okay.
of 1%. And what about
Okay, reclaiming my
funding of the
time. I got
Iraq
another
war?
question.
Well, you don't
Reclaiming
wanna
my
hear the answers to the
time.
questions.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Rose DeLorean. Does the
I
corporation?
know what my name is. You don't have to keep repeating.
Does the corporations pay tax?
Some of them do not.
Name me one that does.
And they paid at a much lower rate than they're
Not the
supposed to.
corporation itself, the people, the shareholders. The shareholders
Some of
pay.
them
It's
do, some
normal
of them
people
don't.
that work there.
Some of them do, some
And
of
if the
them don't.
corporations themselves do not pay the tax. But the only solution y'all have is tax and spend and keep going like we're going.
Thank you.
And the
You
problem
have-
that we've got in this country is that kind of thinking that I think is, we're headed toward bankruptcy, as Jody mentioned. And what about the American people? What about, who's taking up for the American people? It's time for
I
us to
am.
face it. Well, it's time for us to deal with it. Either we're going to deal with it or we're going to pick this thing apart. I could pick a lot of things out of it because I want to double it and triple it because I'm not, American people are tired of, we're going to do this in 10 years. No, 10 years never comes. It never has. I want to do it. What are we doing this year to do something? That's what this bill starts off. Jody, you want to go into, have they offered anything as far as, this administration on his State of the Union, where did he have anything about the debt ceiling? Or where did he have anything about getting our financial house in order?
There's a lot of hypocrisy in this town, and probably every politician's guilty in some respect, but this president has negotiated debt ceilings before. He's been in the driver's seat of negotiating them and had laudable things to say about
How many
the
years
outcome.
ago?
This was when he was vice president. He supported him as senator, but the last spending cap for discretionary spending, by the way, same thing we're talking about, or let's just say a similar, comparable thing, he negotiated. He said it was great. It was an honor to do it. Because at that time, and by the way, the debt was like 13 trillion at the time. Today it's 31 trillion. So this president has done this. We haven't defaulted in 100 years, but what we have done in the last 25 is to have 8 of the most significant fiscal reforms come out of debt ceiling negotiations when we've had a willing partner. Now, it's going to be after we put our 218 on this and pass it, the American people will ultimately make this decision. They're either going to put pressure on my friends and colleagues that it is reckless and irresponsible, that they have to tighten their belt, that they have to cut, that they have to make trade-offs about, they can't say they want it all. They have to say, I got to shop differently. I got to put different food on the table if I can. We've got to figure out how we're going to pay rent. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They've got to do that. I suspect, Mr. Norman, that they're going to expect the same out of their representatives and their government. So that's how this is going to be resolved ultimately by the American people.
And let them make the choice. It's their money. It's not the government's money. People are sick and tired of government ruling in this administration. Government is his God, and that's a sad day in this country. Jason, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Representative. I'd like to just chime in. We've heard a lot of comments about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act in 2017. A lot of untrue statements in this committee, and I think it's corrected for the record. Under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, if you are a family of 4 and you made $64,000 or less, you paid 0 in federal taxes because of the Republican tax cuts. So when any member says that it only helped the top 1.5%, they are lying. Because I can tell you, representing a district where a family of 4 makes $50,000 in Southeast Missouri, under the doubling of the standard deduction and the doubling of the child tax credit, which we did in 2017, delivered a 0 tax rate of $64,000 or less for a family of 4. So anytime anyone says it only helps the top 1.5%, they are absolutely lying, for the record. And also, when you think about the Inflation Reduction Act, it's quite interesting. The Democrats put the minimum tax for corporations on there, but you know who they excluded? They excluded green credits. And that's what we're repealing in here. And you know what? Those green credits are to help their wealthy friends. Those green corporate welfare tax subsidies, it's going to cost over $1 trillion for working class Americans. They don't want green corporations to pay taxes. That's why they excluded them in the Inflation Reduction Act. But they won't talk about that. They want everyone else to pay taxes, but not their friends.
But not their friends. And can I tell you, one of the tax credits was from Proterra, which is in Greenville, South Carolina, in my home state. Ms. Granholm had some stock interest in it. They want tax cuts for their friends, but not for the American people. And that's what the American people are tired of. And I hear the 87,000 IRS agents. Do y'all realize what this is going to do to the IRS? It's bigger. Listen and check these numbers out. It's bigger than the Pentagon, the State Department, the FBI, and the Border Patrol. The current employees of the FBI are 78,000. You add 87,000, makes it 165,000. Those agencies, those 4 agencies, it's going to be bigger. Now, Guy was talking about the guns. Do y'all know what the qualifications are? They're not accountants. They're not accountants. They're just out there like this administration has done since they've been in office. They've weaponized every part of the government to go after honest Americans. And it's time to face it head on. It's not time to continue just to give lip service. We either face it or we go under. That's what every American family does. That's what every American business does. And this business of making victims of everybody, the hardworking people want government out of their lives. And this starts the ball, starts the trajectory of downward spending. And it's not what I want. I could cherry pick it, but I'm not going to do that, because as long as this is what the Senate passes and we reject anything they don't pay, if they start cutting this, then we've got a problem. Mr. McGovern, you asked me a question, or
Yeah, no, this was something you mentioned about SNAP in your remarks, and I really think it kind of illustrates kind of a real difference here between the way we think and I think the way you think. You seem to imply that $2 a meal was okay, and that we, if only gas were a little bit lower.
I didn't imply
If only
that.
you said if only gas were lower, it would be better for these families. $2 per person per meal. That is what we provide people on average on SNAP. That's the benefit. And what should offend everybody is that the benefit is so measly, given not just what is happening with our economy recently, but what has been happening with our economy over a period of time. The deal is you are piling work requirement upon people who are vulnerable, who are in complicated situations, and you don't see a problem with the $2 per meal.
Mr. McGovern.
I think we don't share the same values.
No, and I think you have values. I really do. I like you. Your thinking is wrong on this. And I will tell you that the very people you're talking about that's making $2 or $6, they're being hurt by the policies that you have that you have let go, that this administration has. I mean, name me.
you're
Go
gonna
to
throw a
hold on,
million of
Mr.
them off the
McGovern. It's
benefit.
reclaiming my time. I'll let you speak. Go to Main Street, USA, and ask any American on the street, do you like the direction of the country? Do you like paying what you're paying for gas now versus what you were not paying 2.5 years ago? Do you like the growth in the economy being anemic 1%? Do you like the inflation? Do you like not having paying the price you have for everything, eggs? I'm in the construction business. We cancel projects because of this administration basically shutting down oil and natural gas, which is killing this country. There are not too many dump trucks that operate on batteries. And the flight that I came in on did not operate on a battery. It's gas and oil. And by the way, if you take the refining of oil, I think gas is 42% of it. It makes a lot of other products, plastics and others that this country needs. But I'm amazed that we spent going on probably 5 or 6 hours. No one other than Jason and Jody and our side have taken this head on and said this is a coming tsunami that's going to sink this country if we don't do something with it. Jody.
Mr. Norman, just to address my friend, Mr. Govern, I know you've got a big heart for the SNAP recipients, and in particular, we served on the Ag Committee together in the 2018 Farm Bill. I'd say, number one, the value of the benefits isn't on our term sheet as our first offer. Let me just please. It's about able-bodied adults working and following through on the intent of the Bill Clinton 96 Welfare to Work Reform Act, which more than half of Democrats supported back then. I would also think, and this is a problem, Mr. Norman, and it's what makes it challenging, and it is a mentality issue. It's a value issue. If you think Washington is the answer to every problem we face, I don't think we'll ever have a willing partner to try to prioritize, look for trade-offs, serve the most vulnerable, and the things that we can collectively agree are priorities, and consider our children's future. If you think Washington has the answers for everything, it's like SNAP. There are churches, there are local governments, there are state governments. Nothing precludes Massachusetts. Nothing precludes Massachusetts as a sovereign state to come up with any number of benefits. But here's the difference in Massachusetts and the federal government. They got to pay for it.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I mean, when you bring up churches and charities as somehow a substitute for SNAP or WIC or any of these programs, it just, I mean, talk to the churches and charities. They lobby here all the time and they beg us, please do not take away these benefits because we can't make up the difference. And all I'm simply saying is that, we're talking about a benefit of $2, on average $2 per person per meal. No, but you are putting in work requirements that will affect the most vulnerable of the vulnerable, and and 1 million of them will lose their benefits. That is just a fact.
Mr. McGovern.
That is a fact.
No, it's not a fact. No pregnant women, no disabled, no elderly.
People with
And so-
undiagnosed mental illnesses, veterans, people graduating out of foster care, I go right down the list. That's why I asked you whether you did a hearing
Yeah.
on this, so we could identify.
We've had a lot of
who the-
hearings
Well,
on the Ag
obviously,
Committee. You and I
nobody
had a lot of
knew,
hearings on
nobody
that.
could identify who this population was when I asked you about it
Reclaiming
before.
my time. Let me just say this. You know, if in the real world, the people of Wisconsin, which is a blue state, 80% is aware of the problem we have with able-bodied adults not going to work. It's the same thing as this administration paying people not to work, what it's done to this country, and to trying to make a living in the business arena of hiring people. But I guess getting back to the debt limit and the debt crisis, you know, numbers don't lie, but liars put numbers out that are wrong. And I applaud you for finally facing it. Hopefully we stick with this and don't vary one bit. When you get another bite of the apple on the appropriations, we take a look at these things. You mentioned some of them. The American people are tired of $783 million worth of checks to federal prisoners. The American people are tired of stimulus checks, $1,400 sent to 70,000 Japanese citizens living in Japan. The people are tired of $15 million to build a sports complex for the 2026 World Cup. I could go on and on. Americans are fed up with it. And if we don't get a handle on it, we lose our country, pure and simple. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. Certainly. I mean, people are talking about calling out lies. I mean, it was said that the president did not talk about the debt in his State of the Union. I want to submit for the record the section of the State of the Union in which the president spoke quite specifically about.
What do you do
the
about it?
Yeah.
What action
Well, if you
plan?
we want to engage, I'm happy to read the whole.
No, what's he
speech to you.
done about it?
Yeah.
Please yield back.
Yeah. You said he didn't say anything. I'm responding to
He
that.
said words. He said words.
No, without objection. Gentleman from Texas is recognized for questions.
Cannot agree to vote for a full increase in the debt without any